everyone. Thank you so much for tuning back into Hot Wholesale. Thank you guys so much for all the love. We just hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers, which is amazing. If you guys are just tuning in and you haven't watched any of my other YouTube videos, please go back to the beginning. I've been doing these since I got my first deal. It's September 2020 right now, and I started in May 2020. So this has been a really exciting journey. This is actually the last YouTube video that I'm gonna film from my home office. I'm really excited to announce I actually got an office location, first office of my life. I'm so excited, guys. So if you haven't already, go back and watch the other videos. They're full of free information. I even have a YouTube video that shows every single YouTube video that I watched to learn how to wholesale totally for free. So if you guys are self-starters and you're hard workers, you can watch that YouTube video and literally get a guide of YouTube videos to watch to learn wholesaling for free and get started just like I did. You probably can even be more successful than me because there's some crazy stories out there. I know you guys have heard of people doing $100,000 deals and $50,000 deals, and I think that's what we all want. And this YouTube channel and my Instagram at The Hot Wholesale, guys, go follow it. All I do is just share the gems that I'm learning from other wholesalers and from experience, and I'm just sharing with you guys, sharing my journey, and it's been really exciting. I even did a 2-day virtual wholesaling class for everyone on my Instagram, and it was amazing. A lot of people are getting their first deals, so it's just awesome to be able to share. So when you guys learn something, share it with others because it comes back full circle. That was a random rant, but just to say, guys, watch all those other YouTube videos too because they're very helpful. Today, though, I really want to address contracts and contract terms. So I did the other video just about the basics of contracts, but I have a lot of people asking me follow-up questions like, who pays the earnest money deposit? Who pays the closing costs? Who pays what, right? In a contract, all of those things in the contract are called terms. So it can work a variety of different ways. It's all about negotiation. So you have your price and then you have a few terms like the closing costs. Typically, the end buyer is going to pay the closing costs. In some cases, if some hiccups happen and there's issues and the buyer ends up paying more for this or that, they might be opposed to paying the closing costs. They might want you to pick it up. And you can always try to negotiate with the seller to have them maybe split it or pay some of it, but everything is not cookie cutter. On your contract with the seller, you want to say that the buyer is going to pay the earnest money, and then on your assignment, you want to say that the end buyer is actually taking your place, right? So they're the ones putting the earnest money down. So when you do your contract, of course, at your own discretion, at your own legal advice, this isn't legal advice, but the way I do my contract, I should say, is at least 20 business days of inspection period before the earnest money is due. That way you have enough time, or I have enough time, to find that end buyer if I don't already have one before that earnest money is due. So if you have a 20 business day inspection period, that's a whole month. You should be able to find a buyer by then, and they will put the earnest money down. So in your regular contract, it can say earnest money due 20 business days after this is the inspection period. And then your assignment can have the end buyer paying all closing costs and paying all earnest money and everything like that. So you definitely want to have both templates set up to be in your favor at first, but you'll find as you meet different sellers want different things. Some people are in a rush to close, so they want a 2-week close, and they're gonna make you put that in there. My first deal, actually, the guy was aware of wholesalers and he was really wary, so he didn't want to just sign a contract. He had already had his house tied up in contracts by other wholesalers. So his whole thing was, can you close in 2 weeks and will you put your money down in 5 days? So I basically had 5 days to find a buyer, but luckily it was a really good deal and I did, but that's not always the case. So I always try to have at least 20 business days. One other little cool thing you can put in there is when you put the date that the contract is supposed to close, say they want a 2-week close. So you can say, okay, this contract is gonna close on or before maybe October 1st, if that's the date. And then you can say, or within reasonable time thereafter. that will leave you a little bit of leeway that if the seller still wants to sell and you're still, you have a buyer maybe already and it's just going through the process, even though the contract date is up, as long as you guys both still want to do the deal, you can go forward and keep doing it. It'll also give you a few extra days. This actually happened to me and I started using that. I don't remember where I got that tip from, but this is why it's so important to watch YouTube and to follow all the wholesalers on Instagram, because you never know where you're going to get your little tips from. But I got this tip from another wholesaler, I can't remember who, to put in the contract or within reasonable time thereafter, after you put the contract end date. And what happened was the contract actually was up July 20th. Because I had that in there, I called the seller and I was like, hey, I know the date is up, but it does say within reasonable time thereafter. We're just a few days away from closing. Do you mind just hanging on? You're about to get paid. And he was a nice guy anyway. I don't think he would have canceled the contract just because the date was up, but some people might. You never know if they're aggravated, if they're frustrated. But in this case, it worked out perfectly. He was willing to wait and we ended up closing and getting paid and everything. So that was a good deal. And that was a time where I was happy I had that in my contract, because that is a pretty cool term to have. And I've been doing that ever since. So I think that's a really helpful thing to have. So we talked about earnest money. We talked about the closing date. The last thing I think would be taxes and title fees. So when you do through a title company or a closing attorney, there's going to be those lawyer fees or the title company fees. You typically are going to have the end buyer pay that, but you do have some instances where the end buyer is not going to want to pay that. For example, one of my deals from July, the end buyer was really just a tough person to work with. He kept just nickel and diming every single step of the way. And it was pretty much 3 weeks into the contract after we had already got the earnest money, been waiting to close, and he kept saying there was some electrical issues he wasn't sure of. Well, he wanted to do one last inspection. When he did that last inspection, apparently there was $5,000 of this and this much of that, and he just was very irate and threatening to pull out of the deal. And rather than my seller be upset that we were about to close and didn't close, I just said, you know what? I'll go ahead and eat the closing costs or the title company fees, which are the same thing. So the closing costs are the fees the title company or the closing attorney charges you, just to clear that up, because I know I said closing costs earlier, now I'm mentioning it again. But that's a situation where you might have to pay it. And in that case, it was like $1,200. So it did eat into the deal quite a bit. But it was just one of those take it or leave it scenarios where he really put me in a tough bind. And that's where a lot of times your negotiation skills are going to come in. Most of my deals that I've had, the end buyer has paid any back taxes, closing costs, taxes for that year. They've literally paid everything, earnest money. But there has been those two deals that things kind of went haywire. So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw the other day when I posted in my story this $1,600 check, which a lot of people were like, oh, that's really small. Like, because you see all people posting all these huge checks, $10,000, $40,000, like all this crazy stuff. But in reality, you're going to have all types of different checks. And what's wrong with a $1,600 one and a $9,000 one and a $4,000 one? It doesn't really matter, right? Because every lead you paid for, as long as it's making you some money and you can keep paying for marketing, that's the moral of the story. That's the end goal. But I do want to tell you guys about this deal because it actually started off as like an $11,000 assignment fee, and just everything went haywire. So in this market, water and sewer are something that gets found out when you're in title and they're closing up all the payoffs. Well, they had a huge water and sewer bill, they had back taxes, and halfway through the deal, the seller just turned totally, I guess I don't want to say the wrong word, but he became really hard to work with. He started mentioning lawyers a lot, and he didn't really have a lot of trust. So it was a lot of coaxing him through the process. He didn't like the title company people. It was just a lot of different issues he was having. And he started off as a really nice guy. So as I'm coaxing him through and going through all these issues, it basically ended up eating that deal from an $11,000 deal to me ending up with an assignment fee of $1,600. And yeah, it sucked because I did work really, really hard on that deal, but I understand that not everything's going to be cookie cutter. And in this business, we're going to have a lot of odds and ends, things that randomly happen, and I'm okay with it. I feel like I've been lucky enough to have a lot of success. I've been blessed. I've been working really hard, and I'm not going to be mad because I didn't get as much as I wanted or as much as I thought. One huge rule: don't count your chickens before they hatch. Or like someone says, it doesn't count until it hits the account. Until you get that wire and you can see, okay, I got this money, don't even start feeling like you made that money, because then you're just going to be disappointed. You never know what's going to happen in the end, what little costs are going to eat in. So just keep that in mind. Every deal is different. The most important part of all of this is just getting started and taking action, because once you actually start to talk to sellers and get some deal flow going, get some lead flow going, that's when you actually start to go through the trials that teach you all of these things. Because I could tell you every single story of every house I've wholesaled so far, but you're never gonna learn until you're actually in it. I have a lot of people who did take my virtual wholesaling class, probably 8 people that have been talking to sellers every day. They're part of my Are You Scared of Cold Calling challenge, which I started a couple weeks ago, because so many people are so scared of cold calling, and it's vital to this business to talk to sellers. So I started that challenge, and a lot of people are having a lot of success. They're getting their first leads. 2 people got contracts, but they feel like they locked them up too high. They feel like they might fall through. I'm kind of just trying to help guide them through with what I know. I'm not an expert or anything yet, but I'm just trying to help them, guide them through, and kind of give them other resources they can look at. But the amazing thing is, as they're learning, they're failing forward. They're making a mistake here, they're making a mistake there, but they learned. And that's why it's so important to call so many people every day. If you're calling 300 to 500 people a day, you're gonna learn so much faster. I was working probably 12 to 16 hours a day, and that's why my progress was so quick in the beginning, because I was putting so much time into it. I was talking to so many sellers. Now that I have cold callers and I'm trying to close and dispose more, it's a little bit different, but it's definitely there. If you're cold calling, you're gonna talk to a lot of people, and that's what you need to do to learn the game. All these YouTube videos are great and they're helpful, but action is going to be your best teacher. So don't be scared, guys. Don't be scared of these contracts and terms and closing costs and earnest monies and all those things. Don't be afraid of that. At the end of the day, if you have a little blip in your contract, the title company will probably catch it and they'll probably let you know. And if they don't, then it really wasn't that big of a deal, right? So don't be scared. Ask questions if you need help. If you guys want to DM me, you can. A lot of times I don't see the messages because now it's getting a lot, but I will definitely answer. And if I'm available and I have an answer for you, I'll definitely answer. But follow other wholesalers, because following other wholesalers was really what allowed me to kind of learn in the beginning. And going through those deals, you can get your contracts from any wholesaling Facebook group, and then just make sure the terms are in your favor, make sure everything makes sense, and that you truly understand what you're sending out to people before you send it out. The worst thing is if people have questions about the contract and you can't answer it because you haven't read your own contract. This is our business. We got to pay really, really close attention to detail. So that is just all I have to say about those terms. Just really make sure that the terms are in your favor on your template, so you don't accidentally send someone a contract that says you're going to pay all the back taxes or you're going to pay the closing costs, because that could happen and then you're tied to that on that original contract. So just make sure every time you send your contract out, the terms are in your favor, and then if the seller has an issue with it, then you can go back and make some changes. If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel already, click the subscribe button, you guys. I am going to be doing these videos at least once a week, and you can definitely hit me up on Instagram if you have any ideas for the topics of these videos. If you guys need help with anything specific, go ahead, follow me on Instagram at @thehotwholesale, and I'm there whenever I'm free. I'm DMing people back, so hit me up there, and I'm really excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much for watching this video. There will be many more to come. See you guys next time.